Hey guys, this is the Blue Collar Future Podcast. I'm your host, Jaden Robinson, with host Jesse today. Jesse, what's up?
Hey man, just hanging out. Got back from a walk with the pup. We're good.
Yeah, it's a nice day today. It is it was hot this week, and I'm not really looking forward to it, but sure is nice today.
Would much rather sweat than shiver.
You were talking before we started recording that your side job's about wrapped up, right?
Yeah, we got everything all filled up. As far as all the joints, everything's dressed. The only thing is like a little bit of cleanup. So I was gonna let it cure for a little while, like a couple days, and then probably go over there with like a pump sprayer or something because they don't have a water hookup, and I don't want to damage the drywall anyway. I'll go over there, spray the wall down, scrub it with like a detergent or something, spray it off because everything underneath is concrete. We'll see if it shines it up a little bit, and then call it good.
Is that how you clean when you're doing anything, realistically?
It depends. Like if it's exterior, we're using a diluted mix of hydrochloric or muriatic, unless it's called for that. Like we can't use that stuff, then we use a detergent from like Sure Clean or something like that. There's a couple masonry products that are uh, less toxic, if you will.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure I see very many masons cleaning their stuff off.
Yeah, we go through like with the pressure washer, so you gotta like soak the wall, hit it with the acid mix, and really the acid mix isn't like as it is cleaning it, but it also kind of like blends everything. So it makes all the stuff that's on the faces of the units softer, so they come off. But then it also like blend everything. So because like we lay different sections every day, so like the mortar's gonna cure at different rates. So like this one could be way lighter than this one, and the acid just kind of helps blend it all together.
Oh, cool.
And then, so yeah, you just spray it and then soak the wall, soak it with the mixture, and then pressure wash it off.
Cool. I've been wondering about that because, like, obviously you can't finish a whole job at once, and so like anytime you're doing a cement product, it's gonna look different on different days. And I mean, I'm sure you guys are getting a really consistent mud when you're laying it, but
Yeah.
it's still like per day is gonna look different.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, because one day could be cold or like it could be wet that day or like
Yep.
whatever. So it all kind of comes out different. But we mix mortar out of a silo. So it's like you throw 4 buckets of water in the mixer and then pull the chute and it's all pre-mixed and whatnot.
Cool.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
do you guys do anything like as far as cleaning concrete work and stuff like that? Or
No, because we're not typically getting super like everything super dirty. Like if you go look at some people on their jobs, they'll um they'll freaking splash concrete all over the house and stuff, and they don't even clean it. And so like we just try to not be dirty, and we scrape and brush things off if they get concrete on them. But yeah, so it's not
I'd say
usually a huge deal.
the majority of our commercial walls have concrete on the bottom of them because they'll pour the pads after we're done. And yeah, they just, you're shooting it in there from whatever. So it's like,
Yeah.
whatever. But
Yeah.
then I'm like, it'll be funny because the GC will expect me to clean it. And I'm like, that's not a masonry product, bro. Like, and it ain't coming off that wall either.
That's funny. Because it seems like that's the consensus that like whatever mess the concrete guys make, it's like everybody else's responsibility to clean up. It's kind of weird. I've never understood it. We just try to not make a mess and deal with it. But
Yeah.
people
We're really good at making a mess. So.
yeah. So dude, we've got Q&A today. We did a good job of collecting them this time and got a few. We're going to a lot of them are social media based, which makes sense because we're on social media a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of topics we've talked about on the podcast so far is social media related. So you said, one of the questions you got was, do you think social media is inflating starting pay?
Yeah, so it's from our buddy Blue Collar Performance, and it's
Yes.
not inflating starting pay, but inflating expectations of starting pay.
Yeah.
Which I do agree to a certain point that I do think social media makes people expect, I mean, everything is a highlight reel. So like you'll see the guys are like, oh, I do this and make six figures a year. I do this, make that, but they're not like I think people don't deduce that that person is one likely working a bunch of overtime, two could work in a large city like you and I talked about, where prices of everything are up, or three has far more experience than your first year apprentice. So there's multiple factors that are accounting to that guy making over six figures a year, you know? And I
Yeah.
think that gets lost in the explanation or like maybe the salesmanship of our industry.
Yeah, it's become a trend to post how much you make essentially and what you do in your trade. And it's always like people posting from like big cities and high paying jobs that like yeah, they make that much money and they might be pretty young, but it does also doesn't show like what they did to get to that point. So you have to look
Yeah.
at where they are, what they're doing, how long they've been doing it. And as an apprentice, you're never going to make that much money anywhere. But so like we were talking beforehand, and you shared a video about that someone shared talking about how you should consider your first few years working in a trade. And this I think applies everywhere. Ryan, remind me exactly what he was
Yeah, so
discussing.
I think his Instagram is Kaufman Construction, but he said you shouldn't view the first couple years of a trade job as the job, but you should view it as the education. But like it's a topic I've tried to speak on before of like the I know the world's, you know, either college or construction, you know, like one of the two, but they're similar in the sense of you still have to go do your 3 to 4 years to get the payoff. The difference with construction is you're getting paid while you're there to learn versus paying to learn. Like you still have to pay your dues in a sense. And like for us in the industries, our dues are more the time and labor to earn those next steps versus like colleges, you know, go take the tests and pay for the degree, right?
Hmm.
And I think that gets lost in like this, like I've been trying to be better about it because like the side job instance, I was like, hey, let's, you know, that I can make 10K with $500 of tools. Like I didn't just show up here with $500 of tools, then, you know, have the ability to do this. Like this is over, you know, a 10 to 15 year career of being in this. Um, but yeah, I think what he said about like viewing the first couple years of education would be vital. And maybe as we go forward and trying to market our industry, we need to be a little bit better about that and being transparent about like, hey, there are places and there are jobs that like you're going to get a higher starting pay, but regardless of that, the first couple years you're still paying your dues in a sense and having to learn the things to acquire the skills to get you paid what you think you're going to get paid.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an important point. I like that's always been my main pro, I guess I would say, of trade work. Being from having gone to a university myself, I remember what it was like having to go to school and paying to be there and stuff. And, there is a payoff for the 4 years of school, or at least depending on what you do. But there also is a payoff being in the trades. And what I see happens to a lot of people is they stick around for like a year or two. And when they're not making top dollar, it's like, okay, I need to go find something else. And that entire idea of thinking of it as your education is just lost on most people because I think they see you don't need education to start in it, so they think you pretty much should just be able to work and get paid like a lot of money. But thinking of the first few years as your schooling is great because then if you can frame it like that, it's like okay, all of my friends are paying to go to school, not making any money, taking out loans, whatever. I'm getting paid right now to learn, and then in a few years I can be doing like really well if I apply myself. And if you have your mindset like that, you will benefit more as well rather than just showing up to work for that 4 years or whatever.
And that's yeah, I think the idea of delayed gratification is important in that sense. And in the same sense of like you're not going to get paid just because you've been here for 4 years either. Maybe this is a tangent, but like if you spend the 4 years of your life just kind of like dicking around, like there's no reason to for your employer to pay you more just because you've been there. It's like construction's a merit-based system, so it's based on your skills and your hustle and whatnot. So like I guess the simplest way to put it is if they're investing in you, they need an ROI. Like, so in order to make more money, you got to increase your skills, not just your time on site.
Yeah, that's a really important point right there. And I would also add that like the more you do treat it like that, the more you'll be able to do and get paid. But also, like you mentioned, your side job, you didn't just show up with $500 in tools and get that job done. I would
Mm-hmm.
say like after that 4 years, not only will you be able to make a bunch more money where you're at if you're applying yourself, but you can also take on a lot of those jobs reasonably easy. Because I know like from a concrete perspective, there's a lot that can go wrong on the jobs, and I feel like it takes about 3 to 4 years to even like understand the process and see enough different scenarios to be able to handle it, and then you can start doing that stuff on your own. And obviously there's people that go start a business doing this stuff after like a year of doing it, and that's trial by fire, and I don't really think that's something everybody should do because it's hard. But after
Mm-hmm.
that 3 to 4 years, you have enough experience to like do all these other things and get paid extra based on your skills that you have. And side jobs are really a good way to make some extra money on the,
Mm-hmm.
obviously on the side that, yeah, can supplement your income. And it's, fairly easy, and you can make more money than you do on the job on the side.
And that's your 3 to 4 to whatever amount of years of learning is like so the unions and the things like that. Like you have your hey homie, they're allowed to play outside. Yeah. Sorry for everyone. But no, I have a little chihuahua in the house, and he thinks he owns everything. His neighbor is outside, but I'm gonna let him out. But that sort of stuff comes from back in the day. There were like a master mason, for instance, or and the terms like apprentice and journeyman and master mason, like those come from that era because as an apprentice, you had to do an apprenticeship for a few years and be under someone or under a master mason, and most of those guys weren't getting paid; they were just learning. And then you become, more skilled in it, and you're going. I can't remember what the intermediary term is, but before journeyman. But once you establish yourself as a journeyman, you were able to journey out to other jobs and like do things kind of on your own. So like you were saying, you could solve problems, right? Because without that experience or without someone teaching you, you're not going to be able to like if you go to a side job and no one's there to help you, but you have to solve like you don't have that skill without putting in that time.
Yeah.
And then once you get to a master mason, if you will, that was the guy that was like running the site and doing everything and building the job because he had this wealth of knowledge and math and skill and all that stuff, and he could do everything. But that's yeah, the you got to put your time in to be able to journey out
Mm,
on your own and handle those problems on your own, and you don't get that without
yeah.
putting in effort over time, like you said.
Well, that is an important point to make there. So when you get to the master mason level, you're essentially solving problems, but you can't really solve any problems until you know what needs to be done. So I think people kind of don't realize that there is like a lot to each different trade that you need to know. It's a lot of technical detail, and a lot of people probably don't realize that it isn't that you don't need education. Like we've already said, you need to learn, like you learn on the job. So like you can't just expect to make a ton of money right off the bat because you actually do need to learn.
Mm.
I I think kind of in summary here, as far as what I see, social media might be inflating the starting pay because you see a lot of like these young kids out there making six figures doing whatever they're doing, like whether they're a lineman or
Mhm.
a pipe welder or whatever it is. Usually by the point that they're showing that they make that money, they've probably been working on their apprenticeship for quite a long time, and they probably work somewhere. They probably travel to work.
Oh.
So there's a lot of extra money involved there, and you have to be willing to do that. So there's a lot of things to look at, but usually it's not right off the bat. So I do feel like it probably is increasing the expectation of the starting pay.
And that's probably on us. We got to do a little bit better of our marketing tactics, if
Yeah.
we will.
But the thing is too is like so if we look even at like what a lot of the guys that work with us make,
Mm.
I think the median income in the US is like 50 grand a year.
Yeah.
You can make that in every single trade and more. So I just don't think, I think people need to understand that you need to put your time in, but there's a lot of people going to school still. They're going to 4-year schools, paying for these degrees, and then they are still only making 50 grand a year. And I think that's really important to point out because you can make 50 grand a year pretty easily in almost any trade, almost right off the bat. And it depends all entirely on you and entirely on your work ethic and how much you chase it. So, because it's merit based, like you said. Wild to me that people can go to a 4-year college and still only make 50 grand a year, but it happens. And I'm honestly not sure I agree with the numbers that are showing that people make on average more with a college degree because of especially they're not factoring in all the debt that goes into it. But it really feels like to me at this point that they are overinflated numbers trying to get people to go to school because it's a big business. So
Mm.
I don't know. You just got to follow the money wherever it's going. That's a little bit off tangent there, but it's like, yeah,
I think the other thing, the one, colleges, they've done an incredible job marketing. Two, like you said, it's a big business. But three, when we look at the word like average, you
yeah,
know, you got to realize like they're also throwing in the dude who, the doctor, the CEO, like there's some big numbers over here on this end of that bell curve. So maybe like median income would be
yeah,
a better way to figure out, college,
yeah,
maybe the college graduate income, but
yeah. Yeah, well, it's crazy because I sure see a lot of people complaining right now that they can't find jobs and they have a 4-year degree.
hmm
So I feel like if anything, they are taking those numbers from looking at, like you said, doctors, engineers, anybody like that that's actually needs a degree or should go to school for that and actually has a high demand job. And they're looking at those numbers and kind of pushing the people to the side that went to school and can't even get a job because their degree is useless. It's, yeah, I don't know. Anyways,
yeah.
tangent, tangent. I really don't want to sound like I'm crapping on college, but I think it's just the state of the world we're in. So I do think social media is inflating starting pay in closing there, but I don't think it's too far off, maybe, is what I would say.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not unattainable and it's not necessarily unrealistic, but maybe for starting pay, yes. So
Yeah. I agree.
we'll move on to the next one. And I think let's go on the heights question. So, and this is specifically for you because you work up high a lot. Was it how do you get over heights essentially?
Yeah, so let me I'll look at it real quick. I might get my screen away from you.
That's right.
Yeah. So, question was, how do you get over your fear of heights? It's preventing me from learning the trades, right? Like that's the barrier to entry for this person. And I personally love heights. Like it's maybe I'm the weird one, like but like for instance, we're working at 75 feet high up on scaffold on a single mast. It's anchored in, whatever, it's safe, everything's good. But there's still dudes that are afraid of it, right? Which is fair because I mean, you fall at 75 feet, you're probably gonna die or be severely messed up. Whatever it may be. But I think that a fear of heights is conquered like a fear of anything, and it's maybe what's like positive reinforcement, right? So, like for me, the reason I'm so confident in like our scaffold or our things or like where I'm at stuff is because I trust me and I trust the equipment because I had a hand in setting it up, or the guys that set it up have been trained in setting it up. So, like, I'm confident in the sense of, like, one, I know that I can go up there to 75 feet because the equipment can handle it. It's all safe and secure, how it's supposed to be. Two, I trust myself that I'm not going to go, like, the things that I've set up are safe. And I've gone through my precautions and done it. Three, I trust myself that I'm not just going to walk off the edge of something. And four, like I have a harness, all those sort of things. But I think, yeah, like maybe the exposure. So, because if you expose yourself to the heights and then learn that like it's not the height that's the problem, it's the mistake of, maybe negligence or something else that's going on. So if you're exposing yourself to the heights in a safe manner, obviously like those daily wins are going to stack up and build your confidence just like you would in anything. And that's where I'm at. Like I've been climbing around on scaffold since I was, a 10-year-old. And so it's like nothing new to me to be climbing around up there. It just gets taller. But yeah, I think just like the stacking daily wins of exposure and building your confidence around it of like and knowing that there's certain safety like parameters in place of like, hey, if you set this all up correctly and you wear your harness and all that stuff, like you're gonna be good.
Mhm.
And so like that's in the back of my mind, that big safety net is there, so I'm not so worried about, the 75 feet that I'm at.
Yeah. Have you had many guys that have like been really afraid of heights but have gotten over it? Because I know you said that you had one guy that you guys just kind of made the forklift operator because he was terrified of the heights.
Mm.
Because obviously, like, you get too afraid. You have someone that's too scared. You can't really trust them to perform up there, and you wouldn't really want to just throw them into it. So,
Yeah.
have you had anybody that has kind of followed that process?
Yeah. Like I said, yeah, Judy's young kid. He's a big kid. And he's more mechanically inclined. So I'm like, hey, dude, there's a spot to fill, in being the operator. So like, we can help you out. You don't want to be up there. I don't, whatever. You fit a role here, and that's, like what we talked about earlier. Is we had a conversation about where you fit best.
Hmm.
But yeah, I've got other like a couple of my apprentices. They don't, or then like even some of the journeymen, just they don't like heights. But like I said, you've got to be willing to understand that if we set it up correctly, you are safe. And if you don't do anything negligent on your own, you're safe. And so I think the couple people that have been afraid of heights, that I can think of on my crew right now, and like they're still pretty cautious about a lot of things. They're very good about going through the steps to like, hey, those plank are set up right. Hey, our anchors are in right. Hey, like if you open a gate, you have a harness on. Hey, if, you know, we need to drive the hydraulic scaffold down, we do, like stuff like that.
Hmm.
And so I think that helps them in that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I think from like what I've seen, I'm not afraid of heights, but I also don't necessarily like it. I'm not somebody
Mm,
that likes it, but I'm also not really afraid of it. I think it comes a
mm,
lot down to trusting in yourself, like you said. So trusting in yourself, trusting in your equipment. Like if you're someone that falls down a lot, I can see how you wouldn't really um, like being up there. But I don't fall or trip ever, like hardly at all. So it's like I don't know, maybe a clumsy person wouldn't like it, but I know that if I don't do anything like you said that's negligent or as long as I'm paying attention and mindful, I'm not gonna just fall or something's not gonna happen. So
mm,
I think that confidence in your own ability and who you are, I think is important as anything.
mm.
Just
And I think,
realizing like
yeah,
if you don't fall, like if you're not someone that falls a lot, there's nothing to be worried about. So
yeah.
I don't know, whatever.
I have to say, like Brock, for instance, that climbs on all the tower cranes and all the stuff. Like Brock's up there because he trusts his equipment, he trusts his feet. Like
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
And
You
so
know,
it's
I think I could be able to do that, but at the same time, I would have butterflies in my stomach probably the entire time.
yeah,
So,
yeah, bro. I mean, he's on top of skyscrapers and stuff on a tower crane. Like I think it's rightful, and even at 75 feet with us, I think it's valid to be cautious of where we're at. But
yeah.
like, I would love to go up there with Brock and like be on the end of the
Yeah.
crane and look around. But
Maybe we should do a podcast up there.
yeah, there we go.
Shit. That's a good idea. That'd be a way to track him down. He's supposed to be on the podcast. Come on
Yeah,
sometime.
yeah.
Track
We'll let
him.
him use his voice filter, bro. He'll be fine.
Yeah, yeah. I bet I could apply that thing on here. I don't know. But that's the thing. Like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure anybody like would be up in that scenario and doesn't have just like a pit in their stomach, at least at first. I'm sure
Yeah.
Brock, after being up there for a long time, doesn't like go up there and be like, oh. But I
Mhm.
think anybody, especially up at the beginning, would be like that. And then you start to get used to it, confident in your ability, confident in your equipment. And yeah, I think I don't know if I'd say a tolerance. I don't know if you build up a tolerance, but maybe.
A good word
So
for it, I think.
over time, you
Yeah.
just realize there's not an immediate danger here. Although Brock did share a video of an earthquake hitting, and the person in a tower crane just freaking
The thing
fell from.
snaps. Yeah. Yeah, that's
Now
fair.
that's sketchy. So
Um,
there are things like that, but
yeah.
how often does that happen?
Right. And I guess in closing, I would say even if you get to the point where you're tolerant, like your tolerance for those things is up and you're confident in yourself, don't forget to be cautious because when we get comfortable is when people get hurt, because it's like, oh, I've been up here plenty of times. I'm just gonna, run around this or like do this thing and whatnot. And it's like you're not looking to like,
Yeah.
okay, everything around me is good. So it's like for instance, when I was a teenager, I fell off of our crank up because I fell like 15 feet onto my back. And
Jeez.
luckily we were in Price where there's a monsoon every night, and so like the truck bay I landed in was soft dirt that had like this much water in it. So I got
Jeez.
lucky, but I was just comfortable in it because, like I said, I've been crawling around since I was a child. And there's two straight bars from where you land the mud, and I had set the top one onto the hook, but not put it in the hook. And then I like just running around doing 100 things. Forgot about that, and I leaned over it like this to grab the other one, which you should never do. Like, don't lean over stuff. Like, you know.
Hmm.
And when I leaned over it, it let go, so I rolled like this off and like did one of these and landed on my back, like
Jeez.
in the hole. And like I said, luckily there was water and dust that was wet, and so like I was good. But still, like it's yeah. Even if you get comfortable with the heights, I don't want you to take that comfort as a sign that you don't need to care anymore.
Yeah.
It's something that like you should definitely at height you should be checking your surroundings every day.
Yeah. Comfort's almost never a good thing anyways. So, like, I think people want to get to this point where they're comfortable because that's our human instinct to get comfortable because you're expending less energy and whatever.
Mhm.
But like the comfort's almost never good for you to begin with. So, I think that's not necessarily a good goal to chase. It's just to get confident and be
Yeah.
mindful. Yeah, cool. Let's move on to the next one. Fraco asked, right? When do you see robots replacing brick masons?
Yeah. And if you guys don't know, Fracco makes my our hydraulic scaffold, and there's some great people. But they asked, they're like, "Do you think robotics can replace brick masons?" And I love this topic because there's things like the SAM has been around since the 70s or whatever it is, which is the bricklaying robot, and that one lays brick. There's the block laying truck that everyone likes the video of because it says it can lay like 3,000 block a day. But if you watch the video, there's no mortar, there's no rebar, there's no cuts, and there's still a mason on the ground with a level pushing it all back into place.
Yeah.
The SAM itself, even though it's been around that long, can still only lay brick in a straight line. It still needs people there. Like it's not doing any craftsmanship, if you will. There's a guy in, I think it's the Netherlands, that they do low income housing and things like that they're trying to build a
Mm,
bunch of, but there's a shortage of masons, and he has automated his entire fleet, which that stuff is pretty cool. So like he has little like track robots that deliver materials to the robot and like all the stuff. Everything's but he's doing really simple work. Everything's straight, and it's like it still can't it still can't tool and dress everything. Like someone has to be in there to do that, like the joints and all that stuff. But it can put the units on the wall.
mm,
So it's something that like the tech, if you will, has been around for 50 years, 40, 50 years. But it's just but I'm not saying because I'm not ignorant enough to believe that AI can't figure it out because these things are super intelligent. Like that's what AI does, and I think, something like Boston Dynamics that makes the robots that do all the other stuff, like eventually it is very possible that you could have an intelligent bricklaying machine. But for the near future, I don't think it's high on anyone's priority list to replace brick masons with $1 million robot, you know,
Hmm.
or whatever it may be. And it's something that like the block lane truck that uh if I could compound on that. So you see this thing, it's this truck and it lays block and it has a special adhesive that's like a glue or whatever, and you can see the thing like the time lapse of it's just like flipping block like this out of its chute, right? And it builds this house like it's setting up like Legos, right? And so the time lapse looks really impressive because it's just stacking block really, really quick. But if all I had to do was stack block in a stack, you know,
Hmm.
I can move 3,000 block a day by myself, right?
Yep.
Like I don't have to mortar them. I don't have to make sure they're straight, you know, whatever. And you look at the video, and if you look in the background, there's a guy with a level having to walk around and like straight edge everything still. So I'm not saying that that won't progress and get better, but the barrier to entry is the price. Like that thing is stupid expensive,
Hmm.
all for it to not be able to do exactly what it needs to do. Like what it's building would not be up to code where we're at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like I I'm not, like I said, I'm not ignorant enough to think that it can't happen, but I do think we're still a long ways off from it happening.
Yeah. I think a long ways off is just the important piece because I do think it could. But
Mm.
you made an important point there. It's not doing any craftsmanship and like
Yeah.
any of the technology right now. And that's the hardest part, and that's the part that I don't necessarily see ever happening. I don't know. Because the way it's all done right now, it's way too detail oriented
Hmm.
and it would have to be done too perfectly. But like to be able to have a robot that can like do it the way that we do it. So you got to think about how it's like got to have the motor function and the ability to use the tools the way we do and to be able to set them and then go back and check them with the level and do all that stuff and lay the mortar and do all that stuff. Like all of that is very much detail oriented that takes literally like a human brain and human body to do. And
Hmm.
so if you think about that in that frame, in order to have a robot that can do that, it's going to take like a long, long time to be able to produce that level of technology, I think at
Yeah.
least. And
Yeah, and that's because
I don't necessarily think it's ever going to do the craftsmanship aspect. Like, I don't think you'll see robots doing any sort of like arched radius
I was gonna say,
bricklaying like over doorways or anything. I don't think that's ever going to happen because it's too much. Unless they like, if they're at that point, we've got some other issues. So I just don't think we can afford even to have robots get to a point that they're like sentient. That's what it'd have to be. They'd have to be able to like
yeah, it'd be
think
iRobot.
it would be that. Do we really want that? Do we really want to get rid of all of our like artistic and craftsman like ability? Because I don't think so. So,
Well,
anyways,
it's the same as like in that sense of like AI can produce an image, but it can't create anything on its own, right? So like AI art, for instance, is like it can take the collective information from everything that it can find on the internet and produce an image, but it's never going to go make its own.
hmm.
And so that's the same, like you're saying, is the craftsman. Like I think that robotics and AI could build simple projects, but they're never gonna, like you said, it's not gonna build a self-supporting brick arch. It's not gonna build something that has detail in it with like step in, step out. It's not gonna do any of that stuff. But if you needed something that could efficiently like lay a rectangle, we could probably get there.
Well, and then you got to start thinking about too, like the different dynamics of the job sites that we have around here. Because like
Hmm.
building a rectangle on flat ground is easy.
Right.
And like you said, if you don't even have to lay any mortar and you're just laying block on this little rectangle, you can do the same too. Because it's not like it's groundbreaking speed that those things are doing it either.
Hmm.
It's all of the other things that we have to do. So that brings me into my next question. Do you not think that we would just have to change the way that we do it in the first place? Because I feel like no robots are going to replace anything that we do right now in technology. It would have to completely, like in construction, I think it would have to
Hmm.
completely change the way that we're building structures to have robots do it, unless we get them to the point where they're literally just human beings, essentially. And that's
Hmm.
not a very good future in my mind. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Like, I don't think like, bro, you've been to my job setup at USU. There's no
Yeah.
room. I can barely
Yeah.
drive the telehandler around that
Yeah.
thing. None of the ground's even. None of the pieces, like the walls aren't mapped out how they're supposed to be on the blueprint. So like you got to make a cut. Like there's so many variables that like require a form of critical thinking or craftsmanship. And I'm not saying that AI doesn't have critical thinking. That's what it is. But or computative thinking.
I would say dynamic, like
Yeah, there we go.
changes.
Yeah.
Because, like you
And
mentioned right
yeah.
there, a point on that real quick. You mentioned nothing's exactly to plan. That's how it happens.
Mhm.
Nothing is ever exactly to plan. So you expect a robot to go off of a plan that's programmed in its head and then adapt it to the dynamic situation of a job site. Like it just doesn't, I just
Yeah.
don't see it. So,
Yeah.
anyways,
And like the Boston Dynamics robot, like we've all, well, maybe not all of us, but like I've seen that thing since I was a kid of like, they harass it and push it off of stuff and like, bro, it's been my whole lifetime for that thing to get to where it is. So like to get that to where it's a robot with craftsman abilities is like it's not impossible, but I don't think it's something that we need to worry about.
no, it just, I think we need to worry more about why are we trying to do this to begin with? Because over time, our construction is moving farther and farther away from any level of craftsmanship. Already nowadays, it seems like it's just like slap the stuff together and, bare minimum what it goes,
Yeah.
Like you go look at structures from 3, 4, 500 years ago, like we all love to look at ancient structures where they actually had to use a insane level of skill and stuff to build. It's like
Mm.
we are moving so far away from like any sort of artistic ability with what we build that like I don't really feel like it's a good thing. And then the farther away we move, like what are we gonna do? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's you always see people like, why don't we build stuff like this anymore? It's like, well, because the scheduling meeting every week doesn't allow for it. So,
Because it's
like,
not cost effective. And
exactly,
at
like,
and that's an important thing right now. The robots are not cost effective. So it's not only are we a long ways from them being cost effective, we're a long ways from them being able to replace everything that we do. So I say
Mhm.
best case, you can have a robot that like puts the brick on the wall for you while you're like putting mortar around it and stuff like that. Like I just don't I don't know.
I think there are cases like, there's a company, Construction Robotics, that makes the mule. I don't know if you've ever seen the mule. The mule is a big apparatus that sits. It has a telescoping swing arm and it has a clamp. You might have seen one of my videos of like I picked up a 32-inch block with my fingers, right?
Yeah.
So what it does is it clamps and it moves stuff over for you and drops it.
Uh-huh.
Like it's just like what you said. So construction robotics, the mule is designed so that instead of laying a 16-inch block, you're laying a 32-inch block and it's picking up the weight for you. So you're still setting it in place. You have to release the clamp. It goes back, grabs another one, so on and so forth. Um, I do think there's application for that where maybe robotics can help us alleviate the stress on our bodies,
Mhm.
like in that situation, or like my exoskeleton or things like that. But I don't, like you said, I still don't think it's going to replace the craftsman anytime soon.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
I guess, do you see any application like in concrete where there's robotics, or is that all?
I see even less
Mm.
because it's just unless you're just pouring like literally flat concrete in a
Mm.
perfect scenario, I just don't see it happening because it's not going to
Mhm.
replace human involvement ever. I don't think, especially not the way we do it. That's why I keep like subtly suggesting like we would have to change the way we build stuff right now because with concrete there's too many like on the job site changes that happen and the way concrete's finished, I don't see a robot doing that. I don't know. I just don't see it. I don't see it happening like anytime soon, at least. And at
Mm.
best, I see robot involvement with human oversight. And then I think that's where it should stop. And I see if it replaces people, it replaces the way we do it, like
Mm.
3D printed houses, because that's something that's coming out right now. But even at that, all I've seen from those so far is like simple homes built on flat ground. Like there's a
Uh-huh.
lot more variables that are just, I don't know. We'd have to change the way we do things. I think that's
Yeah. I like that
That's,
point. I agree with you.
and then yeah, I think the conversation needs to start changing to like how much do we want it to give up and to change? Because I already feel like people are getting lazier and less skilled as time goes on. It's like what are humans gonna be if we start creating things like that? We got a small
Yeah.
subset of humans that are very skilled that are creating these robots that are trying to replace other people that are going to now make these other people that barely know how to do anything useful even less useful. So it's like, how much do we want to start giving up before we're just like obsolete
Yeah.
as a race, as a species? I don't know.
I do think my personal opinion is we go if we could have a all-encompassing thing for these questions, maybe not the height one, like but like the college, construction, the blue collar, the robots, all that sort of stuff. I do think that AI will have a much easier time replacing someone like my accountant than they will like replacing my electrician.
Yeah. Yeah. Like again, it's like the way it's done is way too like dynamically small adjustments on the site. Like I just don't, yeah,
Yeah,
I
bro.
don't
I mean,
know.
our job site is currently on RFI 312. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah, dude, it's like,
things change every day, every hour almost. Like it's I every time I open my control desk to look at the blueprints, I have to sync it. And I look at it quite often during the day.
and that's wild too. Having to,
But yeah, so it's just there's like you said, it's too dynamic right now. You would have to completely overhaul our industry in order to make robots work. And I like that point. That's a perfect argument. You nailed that one.
or we get to the point where they replace people and it's like, did we really want that? So if we get to that point, I feel like we're too far gone because I don't know. I just, maybe this is me wishful thinking or hopeful thinking, but I just feel like it's not a good thing to have a robot that is that capable, that it's literally
Mhm.
just a human. So I don't know.
Yeah. Bro, and then, we create it and then it destroys humanity and then everything destroys it and then we worship the sun god again and it all just goes in a big circle.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know.
Who built the
It's,
pyramids?
who did do
Where's
that,
Brian?
dude? Where is Brian at when we need him? I like the
Sorry.
more I see from people, like I see like videos coming up on my social media all the time, dude. Like of historians, like architects, whatever, saying that nobody knows how the pyramids were built. Like, the frick built them? How the heck did that happen?
I
It's
love the
crazy.
argument of like, we can't recreate how they built them. I was like, no, or like, it's like we can't rebuild that right now. I'm like, no, we could. We just can't do it how they did it. You're telling me like with all the earth moving equipment and everything that we have, you couldn't go build that? You're wrong. Like it's people misunderstand the statement of like, no, we just don't know how they did it at that time.
Which again, that's crazy. Like, how do we
Yeah.
not understand that? And how did the
Yeah.
freaking Romans build the Colosseum, however long
Yeah.
ago that was?
Yeah, or what is it? The Pantheon, it's like the world's largest unreinforced concrete structure. Like
Yeah,
the big dome, right? Like that's just
yeah,
concrete and it gets
yeah.
stronger as time goes on. Like that makes no sense.
Yeah, no, it's freaking nuts. So,
Yeah.
and we used to be able to do that, and now, like, what's our skill level?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever.
It's
Yeah,
because there's no ROI on it, Jaden. Like the investors
exactly.
want their money
It's not
now.
cost effective. Also, I think my wife sent me a bunch of reels. She's like sends me a bunch of Instagram reels all the time. She sent me a bunch that were like of desks that were built like hundreds of years ago. So there was one that was built in like the 1700s or some crap like that. And
Mm.
it was the most intricate wooden desk I've ever freaking seen in my life. Like you push a button or something
Yeah, I've
and
seen
like
this.
multiple different things pop open and like perfect synchrony and you can't even tell and all of a sudden it's like folds open to like three times the size and you're like, what the frick just happened? Like how much would that
Yeah,
cost nowadays to build? How much would that like
be astronomical.
$1 million or something? $1 million desk or some crap like that. Like because all of our desks are like cookie cutter put together from IKEA type stuff. Like who's
Mm.
gonna spend that amount of money on a desk? And it was all the way in
Mhm.
and we were able to do that back then. It was normal for people to go like experiment and build things and create things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be cool if we could get back to craftsmanship over profits, but I don't think that's ever going to happen in the same sense that like that's why money goes into sports and everything else instead of education. It
Video
makes more
games.
money. Yeah. It makes more money that way. So why
Yeah.
don't I don't know. It would be because like you see it in our homes too. Like everything's a cookie cutter house rather than like when you see someone that like has like a craftsman house or like someone that built that modern, like I'm like, bro, I can't imagine what that cost or how long it took, but that's great, you know? Like I'm glad that you did that. But the people that are building subdivisions aren't doing that anymore.
No. So this going back to the robot thing for just a second. I do think like since our homes are already becoming like cookie cutter as possible, we could be at a point where the process changes because it like changes more and more every year to just be like people just try to find ways to make it as simple as possible. Like I know somebody was telling me about how there's some homes that are built that have like pre-framed walls that like send out with the home package. It's like
Like boxable.
yeah, like crazy stuff like that. I mean, I could see stuff like that happening, but that would have to happen. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree
yep,
with you.
yep.
It would take a drastic change in another realm for that to yeah.
Huh. Yeah, I think we beat that one. Beat that one
Yeah,
down.
that was
That's
fun.
some good.
I liked
That's
it.
some good questions. Thanks to Fracco. That was a good question.
Yeah, and thanks to our buddy Blue Collar Performance, he's always providing questions, and hopefully that helps our guy with his heights.
Hmm.
Maybe don't just go stand on top of tall buildings because I said exposure and confidence gets you there, but you know, I think there's some other there's some steps you could take to get a little more confident in your experience around heights.
Learn to be confident and always be mindful.
Yes.
That seems to be a recurring theme. Be mindful of what's happening.
Hmm.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, Jesse. I appreciate everybody listening. If you have questions, like ask them when we do the question thing, because I feel like, again, I feel like I always get questions and they're like random DMs that it's hard to keep track of those. So we do our best, and I do have a list of those somewhere. I've been waiting to dive into those archive things. But if you have questions, drop them in when we post about it.
Yeah,
So
and Jaden also has the channel
the
on
channel. Yep.
Instagram that you can join, and that's a good spot
Yep.
to ask them as well.
Yep, you can go to any recent comment or message and leave a comment in it. So that's a good place to do it. So, as always, appreciate it, and we will see everybody for the next topic episode.
Until next time.
Thanks.